ministers from our sister countries in our region and continent, from the DRC, Mr. Emric Huji, and Minister of Media and Information and Broadcasting Services, Ms. Monica Mchwanga from Zimbabwe, and Deputy Minister, of course, of our own Communications and Digital Department here, Ms. Pinky Kekana. It's wonderful to be also in the presence of the Deputy Chair of the Presidential Commission of the Fourth Industrial Revolution, Professor Chirinzi Marwana, who is also the Vice Chancellor of the University of Johannesburg, and with a wonderful, smooth, sweet, not squeaky voice of Professor Adam Abin. And I'm also glad that Professor Uthungu of the University of Fort Hare is also with us. And I'd like to extend my gratitude to Mr. Sipho Maseko, Chief Executive of Telkom, for having conceptualized this type of initiative and brought together all the other people that he's working with. And it's wonderful to have people like Sipho Maseko who takes initiative, leads from the front. And our special guest speaker, Mr. Dr. George Friedman, thank you for being here and sharing your thoughts with us. And Huawei Director, Mr. Kevin Tao, and distinguished guests and members of the media, and ladies and gentlemen. It is indeed my singular honor to be here in your presence and to have been invited at the inaugural Digital Economy Summit. It is for me very comforting to know that the Fourth Industrial Revolution has not yet advanced to the stage where, through the various things that it is beaming out to us, like artificial intelligence, that it has reached a stage where a physical presence of the president at a meeting has now been rendered obsolete. I'm sure it will happen one day, where presidents are no longer needed through artificial intelligence, but I'm comforted that it has not yet reached that stage. Former President Kgalema Motlanthe, you should also be comforted that when you were president, it hadn't reached that stage, so you were still president. However, beyond Gallagher Estate, I wish to acknowledge our colleagues and friends, as the Minister said, who were gathered in Rustenburg, in the Northwest this morning, who are participating in this summit and experiencing via holographic broadcast what is happening here. So this really is our look into the future. We are indeed on the cutting edge of our adventures, and I say adventures advisedly, in the digital universe. And we should welcome this great opportunity that this inaugural summit is offering us. And between Gallagher Estate and Rustenburg, I'm very pleased to be also part of this landmark event in the economic and social history of our country as we go on with the process of beginning to imagine the South Africa that we want and where we want to be. And we are here because of the exceptional work done by the Fourth Industrial Revolution Partnership for South Africa, which is, as Professor Habib was saying, laid the foundation, and I'd like to acknowledge that indeed this is the foundation on which the Presidential Commission will also be able to build, but more importantly, build the dialogue, the national dialogue on our digital future. So this should be a moment when we start a real meaningful conversation countrywide on what this Fourth Industrial Revolution is all about and what this digital future for our country should be all about. In years to come, we will reflect on this summit as having enabled us to imagine the South Africa that we want, and for setting us on a path of inclusive and shared growth and development. And I was very pleased with the underpinnings that Professor Habib was putting to this whole initiative, but that in the end this should be seen as an enabler that will enable us to solve the problems that our people are going through. At this summit, we will define and redefine our society and explore the future of a digitally enabled economy, but also a digitally enabled country, a country that is in transformation, but also a country that is fair, sustainable, and competitive as well. Given the spectrum of participants in this summit today, we are justified in asserting our nation that it is forging a digital compact that is a critical contributor to our development as a nation. The digital compact, with economic justice, social benefit and innovation at its heart, is an important component of the new social compact to which I referred to during the State of the Nation address. It also is what I pivoted my first State of the Nation address on, when I said this moment, when we're facing so many challenges, calls on all of us to join a social compact and to be part of a compact that will take our country forward. Given what we know today about the potential benefits about what the fourth industrial revolution can yield, we must embrace this historic confluence of human insights and engagement, artificial intelligence and technology to rise to the challenges, to be able to enable us to address poverty, inequality, as well as unemployment, which is the biggest triple problem that we face in our country. This revolution must be harnessed and placed at the disposal of the programs of transformation on which our country has embarked on since 1994. Dr. Friedman, we've been in a process of transformation, transforming ourselves from a horrible past that we've had, a past that no other country has gone through, where there was colonialism first and institutionalized racism of a rabid nature, which kept the majority of our people back and ensured that we have people who were kept back economically and in many other ways. And these are the challenges that we face. And for the coming decade, the program of transformation in the end has to be focused on growing the South Africa that we want through the realization of the 7 critical priorities that apply to all sectors. But looking at the 7 priorities that I referred to during the State of the Nation address, today we should look at them through the prism of the 4th Industrial Revolution and what the 4th Industrial Revolution can enable us to do to address these 7 priorities. They being enhancing economic transformation and job creation, getting us to get to grips with what the 4th Industrial Revolution will yield and enable us to grow our economy. And I go back again to the opening remarks of Professor Habib, who said, yes, jobs are going to be lost as we embrace the 4th Industrial Revolution, but many, many more jobs are going to be created as we move ahead with the 4th Industrial Revolution. So as we look at this priority through the prism of the 4th Industrial Revolution, we can imagine and see a future, but more importantly, work for a future and act on a future that is going to create jobs through the fourth industrial revolution. I was privileged to participate in the ILO's Commission on the Future of Work, where the ILO, which is now celebrating 100 years, said, we were formed in 1919, and in 2019 now, we've got to examine what the future of work is going to look like. And they called the Prime Minister of Sweden and myself to be chairs of this commission, and we had the best brains from all over the world. And we said, with the advent of globalization, climate change, and the fourth industrial revolution, what does the future of work look like? And one of the conclusions we came to is that there will be disruptions. Yes, jobs will be lost, but in the course of losing those jobs, many, many more jobs are going to be created as all economies embrace the fourth industrial revolution. And it is this that we as South Africa must begin to look at and say, as we embrace this technology, how are we going to ensure that we create even more jobs? The second priority, of course, for us is improving our educational outcomes, making sure that the skills revolution that we want to see in our country is actually going to create that environment in which our people are better educated and get better skills. And at the same time to create a healthy dispensation and ecosystem that will make sure that our people get better health provision. And of course, we want to consolidate the social wage, where we improve the social delivery for our people. And this can also be driven by the fourth industrial revolution, and enhancing the spatial integration in our country can also be enhanced as we embrace the fourth industrial revolution. Yes, indeed, even as we look at human settlements, even as we look at the capabilities of local government. And one of the important things is that we should also look at this advanced technology to enhance social cohesion, but more importantly to create safe communities, to have safe cities, to have safe areas where our people live. And of course, we want to embrace this technology on a continental basis to have a better Africa and a better world. And this is what I believe this fourth industrial revolution can help us to advance the priorities that we have set for ourselves, to speed up transformation and to ensure that it is sustainable. Now, these priorities must be our life's mission. We must set about all of this in a dedicated way, as individuals, as communities, as institutions of higher learning, and at local government level and at a provincial level. Our pursuit to achieve them must be driven by the insight that was penned more powerfully by Ben Okri in the poem that I referred to during the State of the Nation address. And he said that we cannot expect to remake the world that we want. And we cannot expect to remake the South Africa of our dreams if we are not going to remake ourselves as individuals. Now, the renewal of our society must therefore be innate and internalized instead of being experienced as remote and as being imposed as well. This moment of renewal in our development trajectory intersects strategically with the advent, yes, of the fourth industrial revolution. We have, in a short space of time and rapidly changing technological advancements, the ability or the opportunity to utilize this opportunity that history has placed before us. And we were, if you like, late bloomers, and now we can be early adopters. We can adopt earlier with these technologies. Dr. Friedman, let me tell you a little story. I had a friend who's passed away now, somebody I knew rather, an acquaintance. He was European. And he once said to me, Mr. Ramaphosa, you Africans must concentrate on the wonderful bequests that you have as a people in Africa. Stop trying to compete with the Asians. Don't even dream about doing semiconductors or microchips. Just focus on what Providence has bequested to you, which is your animals. Africa has a lot of animals. And he said, that is what you should look after. And he went on to color it and to make it more saleable. And he said, you know, if you look at the rest of the world, you look at Europe, you look at us in North America, we've decimated all our animals. And you are the one continent that still remains the one environment where animals are thriving. You've got the most wonderful animals. Focus on that and call the world to come and see your animals. We are never going to catch up, he said. We are never going to catch up with the Asians, with semiconductors. You're never going to catch up with microchips in the northern hemisphere. Just focus on what you have been bequeathed. I looked at him and I said, are you serious? He says, yeah, that's what you should focus on. Now, we have gone against, as Africans, we have gone against what my acquaintance said, because we've become early adopters. If you look at the African continent, Kevin Tao was saying that, we've become early adopters when it comes to mobile telephony. We've adopted that. And even with the fourth industrial revolution, we are going to be early adopters and we're going to go ahead. Now, you would say, do both. And I would say, yeah, I agree that we should do both. But we need to focus on the new technologies that are going to revolutionize the world. And we need to be ahead of the curve. And this is precisely what some of us as leaders of the African continent are now saying. We say we were left behind by the first industrial revolution, the second and so forth. The fourth one is not going to leave us behind. We are going to be ahead of that fourth revolution. Now, this summit is a gathering of the brain trust of our country. Summit that has a number of visionaries, a number of dreamers, perhaps dreamers like me, and we need dreamers in our country. We are all dreamers, you're dreamers, I can see it in your faces, in your eyes, I can see a lot of dreamers. But you are wonderful dreamers, because you are visionaries, you are people who want to be creators, you are people who are deeply immersed in the future and who understand the power of dreaming as well. And what you are seeking to act to turn those dreams into reality. Now, as Jack Ma, my friend, told us when he was here, he says, the opportunities that everyone cannot see are the real opportunities. What we cannot see is exactly what we should be going for. Now, many people don't see what you see, all of you as dreamers. And those are the real opportunities that we should go for. Now, you are a collective of actors in the public and private sectors, academia and civil society, who understand the power of setting their sights on the furthest horizons and are able to rise above the challenge and clutter of the present and create a better future. Now, the nation expects that at this fourth summit that you are having, we will be able to come up with ideas that are going to form that foundation that Professor Habib spoke about, that is going to enable the Commission and indeed the rest of the nation to be catapulted to a higher level of intellectual knowledge, to be able indeed to get the country to embrace the fourth industrial revolution. This is the spirit that we need to harness in the coming decade, in which we will be counting down our achievements of the South Africa imagined in our National Development Plan that takes us to 2030. As government, working with all sectors of society, we have set ourselves the task to pioneer new technologies and to take quantum leaps towards the economies of the future and to drastically improve our production levels as well. Now, these quantum leaps can be made real through the 4IR, whose programmatic implementation is led by our Presidential Commission, whose Deputy Chairperson, obviously, as I said earlier, is Professor Midrand, an internationally acclaimed researcher in the discipline of artificial intelligence. When I first met Professor Midrand, which would be more than almost 15 years ago, he was talking and babbling about artificial intelligence. And I kept looking at this man and I said, this man must be a bit cuckoo. He must be a bit cuckoo. He was talking about things, admittedly, that I did not understand. But today, what he was prophesying about is now becoming the reality that the world is having to deal with. And we are privileged that we have a person like him. Now, as you know, the Commission consists of 30 members from all spheres of society to ensure that all sectors of society will be able to contribute to the transformation that we hope that this Commission will lead us in. The Commission is expected to deliver what I call the blueprint and a plan to deal with the 4IR and determine the areas of development in the short, medium, and long term. This plan comes with the embedded ambition of positioning our country not just as an adopter, but a leader of IR in the world. This is doable indeed, considering that earlier this year our country was ranked by the Dell Digital Transformation Index to be amongst the top 10 countries leading the digital transformation change necessary to compete in the 21st century. You didn't listen to that carefully. Now you see, the problem with us as South Africans, we always put ourselves down. We always think that we are not as good as we are. And sometimes we even think that we don't have people who are at the cutting edge of knowledge in the world, and we have them here. Bruce, you were introducing Rapella. I didn't quite hear all the accolades that you were repeating about her, but I think she's one of those that we can count amongst all those young people that is fantastic. So people out there in the world are putting us in the top 10 of this digital economy. And let us embrace that and let us act like that and say, yes, we are, because yes, we care. And that's who we are as South Africans. This encourages us to identify more strategic 4IR niches where we can actually leverage our potential and also translate it into tangible economic dividends, such as the creation of much-needed jobs. The Commission will explore and advise on infrastructure and resources, the research, the technology and the innovation and economic and social impact. They'll also need to advise on the human capital and the future of work, amongst other things. For the purpose of collective and inclusive engagement, the Commission will receive inputs from a number of stakeholders and the 4IR working groups and the various platforms across the country. So we've sought to make it as inclusive as we possibly can. And those who have been chosen are going to be leading our charge as a country on 4IR. One such communication platform is obviously this summit, to ensure that we are able to make waves. Government has committed itself to a skills revolution that will give us the human capital that is required in the digital economy. As I undertook in the State of the Nation address, we are introducing subjects such as coding and data analytics at primary school level to prepare our young people for the jobs of the future. This is how we're now working for the future that we in 2018, Minister Ndebeni Abrahams announced the building a capable 4IR army. Capacity that we need to develop the program to ensure that communities are equipped to take advantage of new technological advances and unlock future jobs and drive competitiveness. Now, 1 million young people will be trained in data science and related skills by 2030. Now, in the Gauteng province, we're doing the TEPO 1 million, where the province is irrevocably committed to ensure that young people are given the skills that they need. Now, through various partnerships that we have also with the CETA, 1,000 young people are being trained in data science, digital content production, 3D printing, cyber security, drone piloting, software development, as well as cloud computing. The types of things that Mr. Kevin Tao was talking about, that company that he's the director of is leading in. Now, with these technological innovations, we will develop systems to improve our resources, our efficiencies in various sectors such as health, the utilities, crime prevention, education, transport, and others, to better give service delivery to our people. Now, through various support programs such as the South African Research Chairs Initiatives and other targeted human capital and development initiatives, the Department of Science and Innovation is building essential capability in all technology areas underpinning the fourth industrial revolution. Now, these include programs in data science, analytics, and blockchain, as the minister was saying, and distributed ledger technologies, additive manufacturing, artificial intelligence, robotics, quantum technologies, you name them, they're all there, and I know them all. We've also committed ourselves to providing the infrastructure, including spectrum, which will enable our digital ascendancy and bring benefits to all sectors of our economy. The minister has spoken about the spectrum, and she will be making those announcements, and we are committed to releasing the spectrum, and that is not going to happen in your lifetime as well. Now, access to broadband connectivity is a lever to socio-economic inclusion and an absolute necessity. Government is alive to this challenge, hence its effort through the Broadband Connectivity Initiative to connect 22 million unconnected people in our country. Now, the digital revolution calls on the state itself to be a clever state, to be an intelligent state, to also be an entrepreneurial state, a state that is willing and has the appetite to take risks. Now, in the US, when the Department of Civil Aviation started introducing this internet technology, they were taking the risk in the Department of Aviation. And later, as Dr. Friedman was saying, when they realized, the pirates realized that they needed a much smaller device in their hands, and that is what unleashed. But in the end, if you read the book that's written by a lady called Mazzucato, who was a professor in one of the universities in the UK, she says Silicon Valley, as we know it today, was actually the government of the United States that took the risk and enabled the Silicon Valley to be created as it is, because it took the chance to subsidize and enable a number of companies, including Apple, including all of those, to be created. Now, we want to be that type of state, to take a risk. Now, the digital revolution is an opportunity to build an entrepreneurial state where government's own appetite for risk and innovation inspires large-scale entrepreneurship, where the small, medium enterprises that Minister Ntshavheni leads will be able to find fertile ground to succeed, where we also unlock economic potential. Many global companies doing well now, such as Google, enjoyed robust, as I was saying, state funding at various points in their lives. Therefore, an entrepreneurial state should not only provide funding, but should also have capacity to determine the strategic direction of entrepreneurship. An entrepreneurial state that I would like us to be should have strong venture capital as one of its elements. With our eyes on the future, we welcome the recent forecast by Accenture. Minister referred to it earlier. By Accenture, that digital technologies can generate, and they say, and dreaming maybe, they say 5 trillion rand in value for South African industry and society in the next decade. So 5 trillion rand is waiting out there for us to go and grab. So says Accenture, and we are coming for it. Now, Accenture anticipates that this value will materialize particularly in agriculture, in infrastructure, in manufacturing, in financial services, with 1.4 trillion created by 2026 alone. May their dreams come true, as ours come true as well. However great the opportunities before us may be, we must remain vigilant in ensuring that economic value is derived from sound societal values as well. The challenge before us today is to ensure that these technologies and ICT in general continue to be a source for good for everyone across the world. No one must be left behind. Therefore, our multilateral relations should also reflect a manifestly enabling posture for the global digital economy, so that we leverage all the opportunities from the technological revolution. Now, there is a standoff between China and the United States, where, because the United States has been unable to imagine a better future which goes beyond 4+1 G. Where they've been unable to imagine what 5G can offer. And where now, clearly, they are jealous. That a Chinese company called Huawei has outstripped them. And because they've been outstripped, they must now punish that one company and use it as a pawn in the fight that they have with China. But the problem is, in the end, and this I got very clearly from our telco companies, all these telco companies got together in one letterhead, wrote me a letter and said, Mr. President, this tussle that's happening between China and the United States around a company called Huawei is now is going to hurt us, because we want to go to 5G. And only this company, Huawei, can lead us to 5G. And the United States is now punishing them. And we have to say that we support a company that is going to take our country and indeed the world to better technologies, and that is 5G. Because we cannot afford to have our own economy being held back because there is this fight that the United States is having, and born out of their own jealousies. And we are pleased that at the G20 summit, China and the United States were able to meet, and they said they would relax some of the constraints that have been imposed on Huawei so that it can continue to deal with various other companies. It is important that even as there is trade war or whatever, it should not spill over to disabling various countries in the world and various peoples in the world from what is a fight between just two countries. We want 5G, and we know where we can get 5G. As we prepare the deliberations of this summit, let me firstly say how proud I am to see this particular battalion of the 4IR Army. You have distinguished yourselves individually and collectively as icons of excellence. And this I say advisedly, and this I say with the greatest of appreciation, that we have amongst you here people who have distinguished yourselves, people who are able to provide leadership to our country on the fourth industrial revolution. You've made great achievements yourselves, and that shows what is possible when individuals follow their passions and interests in a society that makes it possible for you to live your dreams. Secondly, you are here as thought leaders and implementation leaders. And as we heard earlier, what is required is implementation, action, action, action. And this is precisely what we want to see. From here in Gallagher Estate, Rustenburg to Rapiti and Riversdale, this is what we anticipate from your leadership and from your ability to shape the better future that our country wants. And it is my wish that the legacy of this summit will be a profound contribution to inclusive prosperity for our country into the future, and an equally profound contribution to a better Africa and a better world. I wish you all the very best as you continue with your deliberations in this very, very historic summit that you are having. May you have a wonderful summit. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, organisers would like a quick photograph, so we could ask for a huddle of the panellists and the photographers. There's an official photographer coming quickly, take a quick snap. The President has got a country to run. There we go, there we go, take the picture. Quick snap.